I should have known that red sequin dress would be my undoing. Chelsea bought it for me 3 weeks before my 27th birthday. Pulled it off a clearance rack at some boutique in Soho where everything cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The fabric caught light like scattered rubies, clingy and low-cut, and absolutely nothing like the scrubs I lived in, or the faded jeans that comprised my actual wardrobe. She said I needed to stop hiding. That grief had turned me invisible, that my mother would have wanted me to live, not just survive. So there I was, standing in the bathroom of the Velvet Room with my 2 best friends, mascara smudged and champagne buzzing through my veins, listening to Maya dare us to dance in the VIP circle. The dare itself was simple. 30 seconds in the center of those velvet ropes, surrounded by men in suits that cost more than my monthly rent. Then we'd collect our dignity and leave. Chelsea went first, swaying awkwardly before retreating in giggles. Maya lasted 20 seconds before the attention made her self-conscious. Then it was my turn. The music pulsed through the club like a second heartbeat, something electronic and hypnotic that made the floor vibrate beneath my heels. I pushed through the crowd, feeling the sequins catch against strangers' shoulders, until I reached that circle, the VIP section, where the real power in New York came to play. I stepped inside. The music didn't fade, that only happens in movies. But something shifted. The air felt thicker, heavier, like walking into water. There were maybe 8 men scattered across the leather couches, all of them watching me with varying degrees of interest or indifference. Wall Street types, I assumed. Tech bros pretending to be dangerous. Hedge fund managers who thought expensive whiskey made them gangsters. Then I saw him. You will feel so many emotions in this mysterious love story I'm about to tell. Please support us by clicking subscribe to the channel. He sat in the center of the curved sofa like a king holding court, draped in a charcoal suit that looked hand-stitched by Italian tailors who knew the exact measurements of his shoulders. Dark hair swept back from a face that was too sharp to be classically handsome. All angles and intensity, a jawline that could cut glass. But it was his eyes that stopped me mid-sway. Dark. Assessing. The kind of eyes that didn't just look at you. They took inventory of your secrets. Dante Moretti. Though I didn't know his name yet. I tried to dance. Managed maybe 20 seconds of awkward movement before my nerve broke. The other men had already lost interest, turning back to their conversations and their drinks. But not him. He watched me like I was a puzzle he intended to solve, his fingers drumming against his whiskey glass in time with the bass. When I turned to leave, his hand caught my wrist. Not roughly. That would have been easier to process. Instead, his touch was gentle, careful even. His fingers circling the delicate bones like he understood exactly how fragile they were, how fragile I was. Stay. One word. A command dressed in silk. The other men melted away. I don't know if he dismissed them with a look or if they simply understood the hierarchy without being told, but suddenly we were alone in that circle of velvet rope and pulsing light. He gestured to the space beside him on the sofa. I should have run. Should have laughed it off, rejoined my friends, gotten the hell out of that club. Instead, I sat. "What's your name?" he asked, and his voice was like his touch, deceptively soft, hiding something harder underneath. Lara. Lara Bennett. Lara. He tested the word, rolling it around in his mouth like expensive wine. You don't belong here. I bristled at that. Because I can't afford a $3,000 bottle of vodka. Because you look at people like they matter. This is a room full of people who've forgotten how to do that. The observation landed somewhere in my chest. Unexpected and too accurate. I studied him more carefully. Mid-30s, maybe. Expensive watch, not flashy, just quietly worth more than my car. Hands that looked strong but moved with precision. A thin scar cutting through his left eyebrow, disrupting the dark arch. What do you do, Lara Bennett? I'm a nurse. Pediatric ward at Mount Sinai. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, recognition. It was gone before I could name it. Children's nurse, he repeated. That's good work. What about you? What do you do? His smile was slow, dangerous. I solve problems. We talked for 20 minutes. Or rather, he asked questions that felt like excavations, digging beneath small talk to find something real. Where did I grow up? Queens, I told him, in a 2-bedroom apartment where the radiator clanked all winter and the subway rattled the windows. Did I always want to be a nurse? No. I wanted to be a dancer, but practicality won. Who taught me to move like that? My mother, before the cancer took her voice, then her strength, then everything else. I didn't mean to tell him about my mother. The grief was still too raw, 6 months since her funeral, and I still reached for my phone to call her every time something happened. But something about the way he listened made the words spill out. He didn't offer platitudes or empty sympathy. He just listened with those dark eyes that saw too much. "I'm sorry," he said finally, and it sounded genuine. "Losing someone who taught you how to live, that's the worst kind of loss." I needed to escape. The intimacy felt dangerous, like standing too close to a fire. I mumbled something about my friends waiting and stood on unsteady legs. He stood too, and I realized he was taller than I'd thought. 6'2", maybe 6'3", with a presence that made the space around him feel smaller. "Thank you for the conversation," I managed. He pulled a card from his jacket. Mate black, no name, just a phone number embossed in silver. "If you ever need anything." I took it because refusing felt more awkward than accepting. Then I practically ran back to Chelsea and Maya, who were staring at me like I'd just walked out of a fairy tale, or a nightmare. "Do you know who that is?" Chelsea hissed, grabbing my shoulders. Her face had gone pale beneath her makeup. "Lara, that's Dante Moretti. That man owns half of Manhattan. The other half is scared of him. He's just... Mafia," Maya cut in, her voice pitched low. "Like, actual organized crime. My cousin dated one of his accountants. She said they launder money through half the restaurants in Midtown." I looked back at the VIP circle. Dante was watching me leave, his expression unreadable. When our eyes met across the smoke and strobe lights, he raised his whiskey glass in a small salute. The card felt heavy in my clutch as we left the club, pushing out into the November cold. I told myself I'd throw it away. Told myself that whatever just happened was a strange, champagne-soaked story I'd tell at dinner parties years from now. I told myself a lot of lies that night. When I got home to my 5th-floor walk-up in Hell's Kitchen, the apartment I shared with Sophie, where the shower barely worked and the oat milk disappeared faster than I could buy it, I dropped my keys on the counter and kicked off my heels. My feet ached. My head spun. I fell into bed still wearing the red dress, too exhausted to shower. The next morning, I woke to my phone buzzing with a text from an unknown number. "I hope you got home safely." I stared at the message for a full minute, my heart doing something complicated in my chest. How did he get my number? I hadn't given it to him, which meant he'd found it, which meant he had resources. Power. The kind that could track down one random nurse in a city of 8 million people. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt something else. Something that made me get out of bed and walk to my apartment door, pulling it open to grab the Sunday paper from the hallway. There, on my doorstep, was a single red rose, still rooted, dirt clinging to the base, fresh soil scattered across the worn welcome mat, like someone had pulled it straight from the earth and left it for me. The thorns were intact, sharp, dangerous, uncut, no note, no explanation, just a rose that looked like it had been planted and uprooted with bare hands. I picked it up carefully, feeling the thorns bite against my palm, and carried it inside. My hands were shaking. The rose smelled like rain and earth and something darker, like a promise or a threat. I couldn't tell which. That's when I knew. This wasn't over. Whatever had started in that club, in that circle of velvet rope and dangerous men, had followed me home. And Dante Moretti, problem solver, king of Manhattan's underworld, the man with my mother's memory somehow etched in his eyes, wasn't the type to let go once he decided something mattered. I mattered. Somehow, impossibly, I mattered to him. And that terrified me more than anything else. I tried to pretend the rose didn't exist. For 3 days, I left it in a glass of water on my kitchen counter, wilting slowly while I went about my life as if nothing had changed. I picked up extra shifts at Mount Sinai, spending 14-hour days in the pediatric ward where the problems were straightforward. Fevers to break, IVs to monitor, scared parents to comfort. The hospital had always been my refuge, a place where I knew exactly who I was and what I was supposed to do. Nurse Bennett, reliable and invisible, the one who never caused drama or asked for help. But the rose kept catching my eye every time I came home, and the text message sat in my phone like a small bomb I couldn't defuse. I didn't respond. What would I even say? Thanks for the flower, Mr. Organized Crime Boss. Please stop pulling plants from the earth with your bare hands. On the fourth day, I worked a double shift because one of the other nurses called in sick. By the time I stumbled out of Mount Sinai at 11:30 at night, every muscle in my body ached, and my scrub smelled like antiseptic and the strawberry shampoo we used on the kids. The November air bit at my face as I headed toward the subway, my messenger bag heavy with the medical journals I never had time to read. That's when I saw the car, black Mercedes, idling at the curb, tinted windows that reflected the streetlights back at me like blank eyes. It shouldn't have stood out. This was Manhattan. Blacktown cars were everywhere, but something about the way it was positioned, directly between the hospital entrance and the subway station, made my skin prickle. The back door opened. A man stepped out. Not Dante. This one was built like a concrete wall, 60s maybe, with silver hair cut military short and a face that had seen too many fights. He wore a dark suit and an expression of patient professionalism. "Miss Bennett," he said, his voice gravel rough but somehow gentle. "My name is Vincent. Mr. Moretti asked me to ensure you get home safely." My exhaustion made me bold. "I've been getting myself home safely for 27 years. "Yes, ma'am." But Mr. Moretti would rest easier knowing you arrived without incident. There was something almost courtly in the way he said it, like he was reciting a script he'd performed many times before. I should have told him to go away. Should have marched straight to the subway and disappeared into the anonymous safety of the late-night crowd. Instead, I heard myself ask, why does Dante Moretti care if I get home safely? Vincent's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or pity. That's a question for Mr. Moretti, ma'am. I just follow orders. I let him drive me home. Told myself it was because I was too tired to argue, because the subway at midnight was legitimately dangerous, because accepting a ride wasn't the same as accepting anything else. The Mercedes smelled like leather and something expensive. Cedar, maybe, or sandalwood. Vincent drove with the careful precision of someone who'd spent decades protecting people, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors. "How long have you worked for him?" I asked, watching the city slide past the windows. 22 years. That's a long time to follow someone's orders. Mr. Moretti saved my daughter's life when she was 16. A man tried to hurt her. Mr. Moretti made sure that man never hurt anyone again. Vincent's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing the weather. I'd follow him into hell if he asked. The words should have scared me. Instead, they added another layer to the puzzle of Dante Moretti. The man who solved problems, who inspired loyalty, who pulled roses from the earth and knew my phone number without asking. When we arrived at my building, Vincent handed me an envelope. Cream-colored, expensive paper, my name written in elegant script across the front. "Mr. Moretti wanted you to have this." I waited until I was inside my apartment, door locked and deadbolt thrown, before I opened it. My hands shook as I pulled out the contents. Medical bills, dozens of them, from Mount Sinai's billing department, all stamped paid in full in red ink. My mother's cancer treatment, the chemotherapy, the radiation, the endless hospitalizations that had drained her insurance and then drained her savings, and then started eating into the small inheritance she'd tried to leave me. Bills that had followed me like ghosts after she died, piling up on my kitchen table while I negotiated payment plans I couldn't afford. All of them, paid. And beneath the bills, a note in the same elegant handwriting. "Everyone needs help sometimes. Let me help you. Dinner tomorrow, 8 p.m. I'll send Vincent." I sat on my kitchen floor and cried. Not gentle tears, but the ugly, gasping sobs I'd been holding back for 6 months. Because my mother's medical debt had been the weight crushing my chest every morning when I woke up. The reason I worked doubles. The reason I ate ramen 3 nights a week and wore scrubs with frayed hems and hadn't bought new shoes in 2 years. And Dante Moretti had erased it with a signature. Sophie found me there an hour later, surrounded by paid bills and crying so hard I couldn't breathe. "Lara, what happened?" She dropped her gym bag and knelt beside me, her face creased with worry. "Did someone die?" "Someone paid my mother's medical bills." "What? Who?" I couldn't explain. Couldn't find words for the tangle of gratitude and fear and anger knotting in my chest. Because accepting this meant I owed him. Meant I was bound to him in ways I didn't understand yet. Meant I couldn't just throw away the black card and pretend that night at the Velvet Room had never happened. "I have to go to dinner tomorrow," I whispered. "With who?" "With the man who did this." Sophie's expression shifted from concern to something harder. "Lara, no. You can't. Guys who pay off $50,000 in medical bills without asking don't do it out of kindness. They do it because they want something. I know. So you're not going." But I was. We both knew it. The next evening, I stood in front of my closet for 20 minutes before settling on a navy blue dress. The only nice thing I owned that wasn't covered in sequins or bought for my mother's funeral. Conservative, understated. A dress that said, "I'm here, but I haven't surrendered." Vincent arrived exactly at 7:30. He drove me to a restaurant called Luminosa, tucked away on a quiet street in Tribeca where you needed a last name that mattered to get past the host. The kind of place I'd walked past 100 times without ever imagining I'd eat there. Dante waited in a private room on the top floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan like he owned every glittering light. He stood when I entered, and I noticed he wasn't wearing a suit, just dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms marked with faded scars. "Lara," he gestured to the chair across from him. "Thank you for coming." I didn't sit. "You paid my mother's medical bills." "Yes." "Why?" He poured 2 glasses of wine with steady hands. "Because you needed help, and because I wanted to see you again without that look in your eyes." "What look?" "The one that says you're calculating whether you can afford to eat this week." He met my gaze steadily. "I've worn that expression. I know what it costs." The admission hung between us, vulnerable and unexpected. I sat slowly, my legs suddenly unsteady. "I can't pay you back," I said quietly. "Not for years. Maybe not ever. I don't want you to pay me back." "Then what do you want?" Dante was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing the stem of his wine glass. "Honestly, I'm still figuring that out. But I know that when I saw you walk into that club wearing your mother's smile, something shifted, like a door opening in a house I'd locked up 15 years ago. You didn't know my mother, didn't I?" The question landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading outward. But before I could press him, a server appeared with food I hadn't ordered, dishes that somehow matched every preference I'd ever had, as if someone had studied me. Which, I realized with a chill, someone probably had. We ate, we talked. Dante asked questions that bypassed small talk and went straight for the architecture of a person. What scared me, what I'd lost, what I still hoped for despite everything. And slowly, reluctantly, I found myself answering. Found myself telling this dangerous stranger about the way my mother used to hum while she cooked, how she'd taught me to dance in our cramped queen's kitchen, how the last thing she'd said to me was live loudly, "Baby girl." "She sounds remarkable," Dante said. She was. I swallowed against the ache in my throat. And I'm failing her. Working myself to death at a job that barely pays rent, too tired to date or travel or do any of the things she wanted for me. "Maybe you're not failing. Maybe you're just surviving until you remember how to live." The words hit something deep and true. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the scars that weren't just on his forearms. The way he held himself like someone who'd learned early that vulnerability was dangerous. The careful control in every gesture. "What happened to you?" I asked softly. His smile was brief, bitter. "That's a longer story. One that intersects with yours in ways you don't know yet." Before I could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. Dante glanced at it, and his entire body went rigid. When he looked up, his eyes had gone flat and cold. The same expression I'd seen in the ICU when we lost a patient. "We need to go. Now. What's wrong?" "Someone's been watching you." He was already standing, pulling out his phone and typing rapidly. "Vincent's bringing the car around. Stay close to me." Fear spiked through my chest. "Watching me? What do you mean?" He showed me his phone. A photograph. Me, walking home from the subway 3 nights ago. Taken from across the street, zoomed in, my face clearly visible in the harsh streetlight. And across the image, words written in red digital marker. "She's perfect. He'll bleed for her." My hands went numb. Who sent this? Someone who wants to hurt me by hurting you. Dante's voice was clipped, controlled, but I heard the rage underneath, which means you're not safe anymore. Not at your apartment, Not at the hospital. Not anywhere I can't protect you. This is insane. I barely know you. That doesn't matter to them. You were seen with me. You matter to me. That's enough. The casual way he said it, you matter to me, made my breath catch. But there was no time to process because Vincent appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. Sir, we need to move. There's a vehicle circling the block. 2 men inside, both armed. Dante took my hand, his grip firm and warm. Do you trust me? I don't know. Fair enough. But right now, I'm all you've got. We moved fast, through the restaurant's kitchen where the staff barely looked up, like they were used to Dante making hasty exits, down a back staircase that smelled like garlic and old grease, into the Mercedes where Vincent was already gunning the engine. As we pulled away from the curb, I looked back and saw them, 2 men in a dark SUV watching the restaurant entrance. One of them turned, and even from a distance, I could see the cold calculation in his eyes. Where are we going? I whispered. Somewhere safe. Dante's jaw was tight. Somewhere I control every entrance, every exit, every possible threat. For how long? As long as it takes. My phone buzzed in my purse. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I looked at the message. A video. 10 seconds long. Me, dancing at the Velvet Room, and text overlaid across the footage, appearing word by word like a countdown. We know what he treasures. Now we take it. Tick-tock, little nurse. I showed Dante the screen with shaking hands. He read it, his expression going absolutely still, that terrible calm that precedes violence. Vincent, he said quietly. Safe house protocols. Full detail. No one gets within 100 yards. Yes, sir. Dante turned to me, and in his eyes I saw something that made my chest tighten. Not just protectiveness, something deeper, more dangerous. Lara, I need you to understand something. People are going to try to hurt you because of me. Because I... He stopped, jaw working. Because you were chosen as a message, which means they already know you matter to me. And in my world, that's the most dangerous thing you can be. The city blurred past the windows as we drove, away from my life, away from everything familiar, toward whatever came next. And all I could think was that 4 days ago, I'd been invisible, unremarkable, safe. Now I was bait in a war I didn't understand. All because I danced in a red dress and caught the attention of a man who solved problems with power and violence and money that erased debts like magic. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. This time, just 2 words. You're ours. The safe house wasn't a house at all. It was a fortress disguised as a penthouse in Tribeca, all bulletproof glass and encrypted locks, perched on the 23rd floor where you could see anyone coming from blocks away. Vincent swept through each room with methodical precision before allowing me inside, checking corners and windows like he was defusing bombs instead of securing an apartment. I stood in the center of the living room, still wearing my navy dress, feeling like an artifact displaced from its natural habitat. Everything here was expensive in that understated way that only the truly wealthy achieved. Leather sofas the color of caramel, abstract art that probably cost more than my yearly salary, a kitchen with appliances I wouldn't know how to operate. There's a bedroom through that door, Vincent said, his voice gentle despite his concrete wall build. Bathrooms stocked with everything you might need. Mr. Moretti will be here within the hour. Where is he? Making arrangements. Vincent's expression was unreadable. Ensuring this doesn't happen again. I wanted to ask what that meant, what arrangements looked like in Dante's world, but Vincent was already moving toward the door, speaking quietly into his phone. The lock engaged behind him with a sound like a vault ceiling. I was alone. For the first time since seeing that photograph, since reading those words, "You're ours," the fear caught up with me. My legs gave out and I sank onto the sofa, hands shaking so badly I had to clasp them together. Someone had been watching me, following me, taking pictures while I walked home from work, unaware and vulnerable. How long had they been watching? Days? Weeks? Had they been there that night at the Velvet Room, cataloging my dance, my dress, the exact moment Dante's attention had shifted to me? My phone buzzed and I nearly dropped it. Sophie, 12 missed calls, 17 texts, each one more frantic than the last. Where are you? Lara, answer your phone. I called the hospital. They said you left hours ago. I'm calling the police. I typed back with trembling fingers, I'm safe. Something came up. Staying with a friend. We'll explain tomorrow. Her response was immediate. What friend? You don't have friends who make you disappear without warning. She wasn't wrong. My life had been small and contained. Work, home, occasional dinners with Sophie and the girls from the hospital. I didn't have friends with penthouse fortresses and drivers who checked rooms for threats. I didn't answer. Couldn't find words to explain what I barely understood myself. Instead, I wandered through the apartment, touching surfaces that felt foreign and cold. In the bedroom, I found clothes in my exact size hanging in the closet. Jeans, sweaters, even pajamas with the tag still attached. Someone had studied me carefully enough to know my measurements. The thought should have been invasive, terrifying. It was, but it was also something else. Thorough, protective. The actions of someone who anticipated needs before they arose. I showered in the marble bathroom, letting water hot enough to hurt wash away the antiseptic smell of the hospital, the residue of fear. When I emerged in borrowed pajamas, silk, soft as breath against my skin, I found Dante standing in the living room, tie gone, shirt wrinkled, exhaustion carved into every line of his face, but it was his eyes that stopped me, dark and haunted, like he'd seen something that had cost him. Are you hurt? His voice was rough, urgent. No, I'm fine. He moved closer, and I saw blood on his shirt cuff. Not much, just a few drops that had dried to rust. Dante, what did you do? What I had to. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, then held it out to me. I found who sent the photo. The screen showed a man, late 30s, expensive suit, cold eyes. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, and he was slumped in a chair in what looked like a warehouse. Who is he? His name is Marcus Volkov, Russian syndicate, trying to expand into New York. They've been testing my boundaries for months. He swallowed hard. They wanted to draw me out. They used you as bait. The casual violence of it, the way Dante said it like he was discussing a business transaction, made something twist in my stomach. This was his world, a place where people were bait and leverage and messages written in blood. So what am I now? I whispered. Collateral damage in whatever war you're fighting. Dante's face cracked open, revealing something raw underneath. You're not collateral. He stopped, jaw tightening like he was physically holding words back. I'm what? A complication? The best kind. Before I could parse that, Vincent burst through the door, his professional calm shattered. Sir, we have movement. They know she's here. Dante's transformation was instant. From exhausted man to something predatory and precise. How many? 6 confirmed. Maybe more. Positions? 3 in the lobby, 2 on the fire escape, 1 trying to hack the elevator system. Dante turned to me, gripping my shoulders. His hands were warm and steady despite everything. Lara, listen carefully. There's a panic room behind the bookshelf. Reinforced steel, separate ventilation, satellite phone. You go there. You don't come out until I get you. Understand? What are you going to do? What I'm good at. His smile was brief, knife sharp, solving problems. Vincent was already moving, pulling weapons from hidden compartments with the ease of long practice. Other men appeared, 4, 5, 6 of them, all dressed in black, all moving with military precision. This wasn't improvised. This was a machine that had been built over years, oiled with violence and loyalty. Dante, go. Now. But I couldn't. Something in me, the part that had spent 10 years in trauma wards, that had held pressure on gunshot wounds while waiting for surgeons, that knew the difference between controlled bleeding and fatal hemorrhaging, refused to hide. When the shooting started, sharp cracks that made my ears ring and my heart slam against my ribs, I stayed frozen in the panic room doorway. Through the crack, I watched Dante move. He didn't fight like they do in movies, all flashy kicks and dramatic punches. He fought like violence was a language he'd been speaking since childhood, economical and brutal and terrifyingly effective. A man rushed him and Dante sidestepped, using the attacker's momentum to slam him into the wall. Another came from behind and Vincent intercepted, moving despite his age with the grace of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. It was over in 3 minutes. 4 men lay unconscious on the floor, not dead. I noted with relief that felt absurd given the circumstances. 2 more had retreated down the stairwell, pursued by Vincent's team, and Dante stood in the center of the wreckage, breathing hard, a gash bleeding freely down his left forearm where someone had caught him with a knife. He found me emerging from the panic room, my nurse's instinct overriding every scrap of common sense. "I told you to stay hidden. You're bleeding." I pointed to his arm, my voice steadier than I felt. "That needs stitches. Lara, sit down. Now." Something in my tone, the voice I used with resistant patients, with grieving parents, with anyone who needed someone else to take control, made him obey. He sank onto the sofa while I grabbed the first aid kit from the bathroom, my hands moving on autopilot. As I cleaned the wound, I felt him watching me. Not my hands, precise and steady as they'd been trained to be. My face. "You're not afraid," he observed quietly. "Of blood?" "No." I threaded the needle, grateful my training held even as my mind screamed. "Of whatever world I've stumbled into, terrified, you could leave. I'd protect you from a distance. Make sure you're safe without..." He gestured vaguely between us. "Without this." I tied off the first stitch with more force than necessary. "Is that what you want?" "What I want doesn't matter. Humor me." Dante was quiet while I worked, his jaw tight. When I finished the final stitch and began wrapping his forearm with gauze, he finally spoke. "I want you to have a choice. Real choice. Not the kind that comes when you're scared and trapped and don't see another option." I secured the bandage and sat back, meeting his eyes. "Then give me all the information. Who are these people? Why do they want to hurt you? And what does any of this have to do with me?" "It's complicated. I'm a pediatric nurse. I explain cancer to 6-year-olds. Try me." Despite everything, he almost smiled. Then his phone buzzed, and the almost smile vanished. He read whatever was on the screen, and his face went absolutely blank. The most frightening expression I'd seen yet. Without a word, he turned the screen toward me. It was a photograph of my apartment building. The familiar brownstone on West 48, with its crooked fire escape and the bodega on the corner. And standing in front of it, clear as day in the harsh streetlight, was Sophie. My roommate, my best friend since junior year of college. She was being guided, not dragged, but firmly directed, toward a black van by 2 men in suits. Her face showed confusion more than fear, like she thought maybe this was some kind of mistake she could talk her way out of. Below the photo, a message in block letters: "Trade her for the girl. Midnight. Pier 57. Come alone or your little nurse learns what we do to witnesses." The world tilted. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the image of Sophie's face, past the knowledge that she'd been taken because of me, because I'd danced in a red dress, because I'd let Dante Moretti into my life. No. Dante's voice cut through my panic like a blade. Absolutely not. I stared at him, my heart hammering. They have Sophie, my best friend. "I'm not negotiating this. You think I'd let you walk into a trap?" He moved so fast I didn't see it coming, caging me against the sofa with his arms, his face inches from mine. "You think I'd trade your life for anyone's? She's innocent. She doesn't deserve..." "Neither do you." His voice dropped to something raw, almost broken. "I don't lose what's mine, Lara. Not ever. Not to the Volkovs, not to anyone." The possessiveness should have angered me, should have made me push him away, demand my freedom, my choice. Instead, all I could think was that Sophie was out there, scared and confused, because I'd caught the attention of a man who lived in a world where people were chess pieces. "Then what do we do?" I whispered. Dante's eyes were black fire. "We don't trade anything. We take her back." The drive to Pier 57 felt like descending into a nightmare that had texture and weight. Vincent drove with the same careful precision as always, but now I understood what it meant. The constant mirror checks, the route that zigzagged through streets that made no logical sense, the way he communicated in terse phrases through an earpiece I couldn't hear. This was a man who'd spent decades keeping people alive in a world where attention meant death. I sat in the back next to Dante, my hands clasped so tightly in my lap that my knuckles had gone white. He'd changed into a fresh shirt, black, long-sleeved, nothing that would show blood. The tactical vest he wore underneath made his shoulders look broader, more imposing. He was armed. I'd watched him check the gun with movements so practiced they looked like meditation. "You stay in the car," he said for the third time, his voice tight with controlled tension. "Vincent's team will extract Sophie from the south side while I meet them at the north entrance. You do not exit this vehicle. You do not try to help. You do not be a hero. Are we clear? What if something goes wrong? Then you drive away. Vincent has instructions to get you out of the city, out of the country if necessary." The casual way he said it, "out of the country," made my stomach drop. "And leave you behind?" No. Dante turned to face me fully, and in the dim light from passing street lamps, I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. The weight. Why do you care? The question hung between us, loaded with implications I wasn't ready to examine. Because caring meant investment, meant crossing a line from grateful stranger into something more complicated, more dangerous. Because I'm starting to understand that you're not the monster everyone says you are. Something cracked in his expression, not quite a smile, but close, painful. "You don't know what I've done. The things I've had to do to survive, to build this." He gestured vaguely, encompassing his world, his power, the empire of violence and loyalty that kept him alive. "If you knew, you'd run. Try me. I've hurt people, Lara, made them disappear. I've stood in rooms where men begged for mercy I didn't give. I've built an empire on fear and blood and compromises that would make you sick. I thought about my mother, about the way she used to talk about her patients at Mount Sinai, not just the children she treated, but their parents, their siblings, the whole ecosystem of pain and hope that surrounded illness. She'd once told me that everyone was fighting battles nobody else could see. That judgment was easy, but understanding took courage. My mother saved a 15-year-old boy once," I said quietly. "Brought him to the hospital, stitched his ribs, fed him soup. She never told me his name, but she came home different after that year, more careful, more afraid, like she'd seen something that changed her understanding of how the world worked." Dante had gone absolutely still. "Lara, that was you, wasn't it? The boy she saved?" The silence was confirmation enough. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with old grief. "She found me in an alley in Brooklyn. I'd run from my father's house because staying meant dying, slowly and painfully. Your mother didn't ask questions, didn't call the police or child services or any of the systems that should have helped but never did. She saw me, really saw me. And for the first time in my life, someone cared whether I lived or died. My chest ached with the weight of it. All these years, my mother had carried that secret, had protected this boy who'd grown into a man who solved problems with violence and money and power. Had she known what he'd become? Would she have saved him anyway? "She talked about you," I whispered. "Never by name, just the boy who survived. She said you taught her that sometimes the rules we follow aren't the same as what's right. I'm sorry." "For what?" "For bringing this into your life, for making you a target because I couldn't. Because when I saw you wearing her smile, I knew I'd found something I'd been looking for without realizing I was searching." The confession settled between us like something fragile and dangerous. Before I could respond, Vincent's voice cut through the tension. 2 minutes out, everyone in position. The pier materialized from the darkness, chain-link fences and shipping containers, the kind of location that appeared in crime dramas as shorthand for "bad things happen here." Vincent parked 50 yards back, engine idling, positioned for a quick escape. Dante checked his gun one final time, his movements mechanical. Then he turned to me, and for just a moment, the armor cracked completely. "If something happens to me, don't. If something happens, Vincent will take care of you. There's a bank account, documents, everything you need to disappear and start over. Promise me you'll use them. Dante, promise me. I promise." The lie tasted bitter, because I knew with absolute certainty that if something happened to him, I wouldn't run, wouldn't disappear, would instead do something stupid and impulsive and completely unlike the careful, invisible nurse I'd been 3 days ago. He studied my face like he was memorizing it, then leaned forward and pressed his lips to my forehead. Not a kiss, exactly. More like a benediction, a prayer. "Stay in the car." Then he was gone. disappearing into the shadows with a grace that shouldn't have been possible for someone his size. I watched through the tinted windows as the scene unfolded like a choreographed dance. Dante approaching from the north, hands visible and empty. 4 men emerging from between containers, weapons drawn but not aimed. And in the center, barely visible in the dim security lighting, Sophie, looking small and terrified and so painfully out of place in this world of violence. I couldn't hear the conversation, could only watch as Dante spoke, gestured, his body language projecting confidence that might have been real or might have been performance. One of the men laughed. Another checked his phone. Then everything went wrong at once. Gunfire erupted from the south, Vincent's team, moving to extract Sophie, the men with her scattered, returning fire, and suddenly Dante was moving too, faster than I'd have thought possible. He reached Sophie in 4 strides, covering her body with his own as bullets sparked off metal containers around them. I didn't make a conscious decision to move. One moment I was in the car, hands pressed against the window. The next I was outside, running toward the chaos despite every scrap of training that screamed at me to stay back, to let professionals handle it, to not be the idiot civilian who made things worse. Vincent intercepted me halfway there, his arm banding around my waist like an iron bar. "Miss Bennett, no, she's hurt." I could see blood on Sophie's leg, could see the way she was crumpling despite Dante's attempt to support her. "Let me go. I'm a nurse." "You're a target." But Vincent was already adjusting, pulling me with him toward cover while speaking rapidly into his earpiece. We reached the containers where Dante had Sophie pressed against rusted metal, his body still shielding her, his gun tracking movements I couldn't see. "She's been shot," he said flatly. "Leg, not life-threatening, but she needs pressure on it now." I dropped to my knees beside Sophie, my hands already moving to assess the wound. Through and through, clean entry and exit, missing the femoral artery by maybe 2 inches. Lucky, impossibly, stupidly lucky. "You're okay," I told Sophie, my voice dropping into that calm nurse tone that I'd perfected over a decade. "It's a clean wound, you're going to be fine. I need you to stay still while I stop the bleeding." "Lara?" Sophie's voice was small, confused, edged with shock. "What's happening?" "Those men, they said they just wanted to ask questions. I'll explain everything. Right now, I need you to focus on my voice and breathe." The shooting had stopped. Vincent's team had pushed the attackers back, and now we were in a strange bubble of calm that felt more dangerous than the chaos. Dante pulled off his shirt, revealing the tactical vest underneath, and handed me the fabric. I used it to apply pressure to Sophie's wound, my movements automatic despite the surreal absurdity of the situation. "We need to move," Vincent said. "They'll regroup." Getting Sophie to the car was a blur of movement and adrenaline. Dante carried her like she weighed nothing, Vincent and his team forming a protective perimeter, and me stumbling along behind with my hands still bloody from field dressing a gunshot wound in the middle of a pier. In the car, with Sophie's head in my lap and Dante's shirt tied tight around her thigh, reality finally caught up with me. My best friend had been shot. I'd run into active gunfire. The man sitting across from me, checking his phone with that same casual precision, had just risked his life to save someone he'd never met. "Thank you," I whispered. Dante looked up, his eyes finding mine in the darkness. "You didn't stay in the car?" "No. You could have been killed." "So could you?" Something shifted in his expression. Not anger, though he had every right to that. Something softer, more complicated. "We need to talk. About rules. Rules. If you're staying in my world, and it's clear you're not running despite having every reason to, then we need boundaries. Clear ones." We took Sophie to a private clinic in Queens, the kind of place that didn't ask questions and didn't report gunshot wounds to the authorities. A doctor I didn't recognize but who clearly knew Dante stitched her up while she drifted in and out of consciousness, too shocked to fully process what had happened. "She'll stay here tonight," the doctor said. "Under observation. I'll have a guard posted." "She can't go home," I said. "Her apartment is being cleaned and secured as we speak," Dante cut in. "When she's ready to leave, she'll have options, safe ones." Back in the car, driving through pre-dawn streets toward the penthouse, Dante finally broke the silence. "I have 3 rules." His voice was quiet, serious, stripped of the dangerous charm I'd seen that first night. Rule 1, you don't lie to me. Ever. I've built my life on reading people. on knowing when I'm being used or manipulated. I can't have that uncertainty with you. Okay. Rule 2. You let me protect you, even when you hate it. Even when it feels like control or possession or anything else that makes your independence scream. Because people will try to hurt you to get to me, and I can't. His voice cracked slightly. I can't watch that happen. And rule 3. He turned to face me fully, and in the growing light, I could see the vulnerability in his eyes. You tell me when you want to leave. You don't just disappear, don't ghost me, don't run without explanation. You look me in the eye and tell me you're done, and I'll let you go. I won't like it, but I'll let you walk away. I just need to know. The rules settled over me, feeling less like restrictions and more like a framework for something I didn't have words for yet. I have one rule. What? You don't make me disappear. I keep my job, my life, my identity. I'm not a possession to be hidden away and protected like valuable art. If I'm staying in this, I gestured between us, then I stay as myself. Nurse Bennett, who works doubles and drinks bad coffee and has opinions you won't always like. Dante extended his hand, formal and somehow intimate at once. Deal. I took his hand, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip. We shook on it like business partners negotiating a contract, though we both knew this was something else entirely. Back at the penthouse, exhaustion crashed over me like a wave. I showered, washing Sophie's blood from my hands and watching it spiral down the drain in pale pink rivulets. When I emerged, wrapped in a robe that was too big and smelled like cedar, I found Dante standing at the windows, silhouetted against the awakening city. Can't sleep either, I whispered. He turned, and in his hand was a photograph. Old, creased, the colors faded. He crossed to me and held it out. My breath caught. It was my mother. Young, maybe 25, standing next to a teenage boy with hollow cheeks and haunted eyes and bruises shadowing his too thin arms. She had her arm around his shoulders, smiling at the camera with fierce protectiveness. And the boy, God, the boy was clearly Dante, 15 and broken and clinging to her like she was the only solid thing in a world made of quicksand. I need to tell you something, Dante said, his voice rough with exhaustion or emotion or both. About why I was at that club the night you danced. And why, when I saw you, I knew what? That someone had finally found me after 15 years. He swallowed hard. The daughter of the woman who saved my life. Your mother. Lara, I've been watching over you since she died, making sure you were safe, that you had what you needed. That photograph you saw, someone taking pictures of you. That wasn't the first surveillance. I've had people keeping you safe for months. The world tilted. You've been watching me, protecting you. There's a difference, is there? His face crumpled. I owed her everything. She gave me a chance to become something other than my father's son. And when she got sick, I made sure she had the best doctors, the best treatments. I paid every bill, funded every experimental therapy, but I couldn't save her. And when she died, the only thing I could do was make sure her daughter, you, had a chance at the life she wanted for you. I should have been angry, should have felt violated by the revelation that I'd been watched, protected without my knowledge or consent. Instead, I felt something else, a strange sense of inevitability, like all the threads of my life had been pulling toward this moment. So this whole time, the club, the dinner, everything, you knew who I was? Yes. And you never told me. I was afraid. He laughed, bitter and hollow. The man everyone calls ruthless and untouchable was afraid of a pediatric nurse finding out he'd been protecting her like some guardian angel with blood on his hands. I looked at the photograph again, at my mother's smile, at the broken boy she'd saved. She would have wanted this, I said quietly. You watching over me. She believed in second chances, in protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Even if those people grow up to be monsters. You're not a monster. You're someone who survived the only way you knew how. And my mother saw that. She saw the boy underneath the bruises and the fear. Just like I'm starting to see the man underneath all this power and violence. Dante moved closer, and suddenly we were standing in that charged space where breathing felt significant. Lara, I'm not a good man. I've done things that would make you... Then don't tell me, I interrupted. Not yet. Let me figure out who you are now before I have to judge who you were. His hand came up to cup my face, gentle despite the violence those fingers had enacted just hours ago. You're braver than you know. Or stupider. Maybe both. The moment stretched between us, fragile and dangerous. Then his phone shattered it with a harsh buzz that made us both jump. Dante read whatever was on the screen, and every trace of vulnerability vanished, replaced by that cold mask of control. What is it? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. He turned the screen toward me, his face carved from stone. It was an email, no sender name, just a blank field. The subject line read, "Remember this," and attached was a video file. Dante pressed play, and grainy security footage filled the screen. Mount Sinai Hospital. A hallway I recognized immediately, 3rd floor near the supply closet. The timestamp showed 2 years ago. My stomach dropped, because I knew what came next. Knew it with every cell in my body that had spent 2 years trying to forget. The video showed me, younger, thinner, my hair longer then, walking down that hallway with an armful of supplies. And then him, Dr. Richard Castellano, cornering me, his hands on my wrists, my body going rigid with fear. The frozen paralysis that people who've never experienced assault don't understand. How your body can stop working, can betray you, can leave you trapped while your mind screams. Dante stopped the video. When he looked at me, his eyes were black fire. Who is that man? I couldn't speak. My throat had closed around words that wouldn't come. Lara, his voice dropped to something deadly soft. Who hurt you? Dr. Richard Castellano. The words came out broken, small. He was a surgeon at Mount Sinai. I reported him. He got suspended. Then he disappeared before the investigation concluded. And now he's back. Below the video, a message had appeared. Tomorrow, this goes public. Unless you come to me. Alone. The address is attached. You have 24 hours to decide who you want to protect more, yourself or your monster. Dante doesn't rage, doesn't shout. He becomes something colder, a version of himself that reminds me he didn't rise to power through kindness. He makes one phone call, just one. His voice is quiet, controlled, more terrifying than any explosion of anger could be. Find Richard Castellano. I don't care what it costs. I want everything, his location, his associates, his secrets, and I want it in 2 hours. He hangs up and turns to me, and what I see in his eyes isn't just fury. It's something that makes my chest ache. Love wrapped in vengeance, protection that looks like violence. Tell me everything, he says, sitting beside me on the sofa. Every detail, every moment, every touch. I don't want to go back there. Don't want to relive the supply closet. The way Richard's hands had felt like iron around my wrists. The smell of his cologne mixing with my own fear. But Dante's waiting with a patience that feels like safety. So I talk. I tell him about Richard Castellano. Brilliant surgeon, hospital darling, the kind of doctor who charmed patients and intimidated staff. How he'd cornered me that day, pressed me against shelves stocked with gauze and syringes while I froze like prey. How his words had been worse than his touch. Promises about what he could do to my career if I told anyone. Reminders that he was untouchable. I reported him, I whisper. Went through all the proper channels. Hospital administration, HR, even spoke to a detective. But Richard had friends everywhere, lawyers who made my testimony sound confused, colleagues who suddenly remembered me as unstable, emotional, prone to misunderstanding of professional boundaries. Dante's hands have curled into fists so tight his knuckles have gone white. And then, he got suspended for 3 months, paid leave while they investigated. But before anything concluded, he vanished. Left the city, left his practice. I hoped. That meant it was over. It's never over, Dante says quietly. Men like that don't disappear out of shame. They disappear to regroup. His phone buzzes. Once, twice, a dozen times in rapid succession. He reads through the messages with an expression that grows darker with each screen. What did they find? Richard Castellano has been in Moscow for 18 months, working for the Volkov family as their medical consultant, treating injuries that can't go to legitimate hospitals, performing procedures that would lose him his license anywhere with functioning oversight. He returned to New York 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. Right around the time I danced in that red dress at the Velvet Room. This isn't coincidence. Dante continues, still scrolling. The Volkovs have been trying to expand into Manhattan for years. I've blocked them at every turn. Using you to get to me, using your trauma as a weapon. That's their declaration of war. The clinical way he says it makes something inside me crack, because this is his world. A place where my assault becomes tactical information, where my pain is just another chess piece in a game I never agreed to play. I should leave. The words come out small, broken. This is too much. Sophie got shot. Richard is back and threatening to destroy what's left of my reputation. People are dying because I caught your attention at a nightclub. No one is dying, Dante interrupts firmly. Sophie is safe and healing. Richard made a mistake showing his hand. And you, he moves closer, his hands framing my face with gentleness that contradicts everything I know about him. You are not responsible for the violence of evil men. Not Richard's assault, not the Volkovs' war, not any of it. But if you hadn't danced that night, someone else would have been their target eventually. If you hadn't smiled at me, I would have found another way to honor your mother's memory. The violence was always there, Lara. You just became visible enough to see it. Tears I've been holding back for 2 years, since that day in the supply closet, since my mother's diagnosis, since I learned that being invisible was the only way to stay safe, finally break free. I cry into Dante's chest while he holds me with hands that have hurt people, that have built an empire on fear, that are somehow the gentlest thing I've ever felt. I'm going to fix this, he says against my hair. I'm going to make him pay for what he did to you. But I need you to understand what that means. I pull back enough to see his face. What does it mean? It means I'm going to destroy him. Not just hurt him. Destroy everything he is, everything he's built, everyone who protected him. It means you're going to see exactly what I'm capable of when someone touches what's mine. The possessiveness should frighten me. Instead, I feel something settle in my chest. Permission. To be angry. To want justice instead of just survival. To stop being the good girl who swallows trauma and moves on. Show me, I whisper. Dante's eyes widen slightly. Lara, I said, show me. I need to understand who you are, what you do. Because if I'm staying in this world, I can't be protected from it. I have to see it. He studies my face for a long moment, searching for something. Then he nods slowly. Okay, but you watch from behind glass. And if at any point you want to leave, you tell me. No judgment, no consequences. Agreed? Agreed. 2 hours later, I'm standing in a room I'll never be able to locate again. Industrial. Cold. The kind of place that exists in the gaps of the city's legitimate geography. Through one-way glass, I watch as Richard Castellano is brought in by 2 of Dante's men. He looks different from my memories. Thinner, harder. Prison or Moscow or guilt, something, has carved away the polished charm, leaving only the cruelty underneath. Dante enters the room alone. No weapons visible, just that calm, controlled presence that makes the air feel thinner. Dr. Castellano. Dante's voice comes through speakers in my observation room. We need to talk about your hobbies. I don't know what you're talking about. Richard's bravado is forced, transparent. I'm a physician. I treat patients. You assault women. You traffic medications. You perform illegal procedures for Russian gangsters. Dante pulls out a tablet, taps the screen. You also made the mistake of threatening someone under my protection. The nurse? Richard laughs, but it's brittle. She's nothing. A nobody who couldn't handle professional attention. Dante moves so fast I barely track it. One moment he's across the room. The next he's inches from Richard's face, his voice dropping to something that makes my blood ice over even from behind the glass. Her name is Lara Bennett. She's the daughter of the woman who saved my life, and you put your hands on her. You made her feel small and afraid and powerless. So now you're going to learn exactly how that feels. What happens next isn't torture. It's something more surgical, more complete. Dante makes phone calls, in front of Richard, on speaker. I listen as he systematically dismantles a life, contacting the FBI about medical fraud, alerting the DEA about prescription trafficking, sending documentation to medical boards that will revoke licenses permanently. News outlets receive evidence of a decade-long pattern of assault. Former colleagues get anonymous packages containing proof of Richard's crimes. You wanted her afraid, Dante says quietly. You wanted her to feel like no one would believe her, like her truth was worthless. So now you know how that feels. The law will put you away. But everyone you meet in prison, every guard, every inmate, they'll know exactly what you did. And in that world, Dr. Castellano, men like you don't last long. Richard breaks completely. Screams about immunity deals, about what he knows, about the Volkovs' operations. But Dante just listens with that same terrible calm, recording every word. When it's over, when Richard has been taken away by federal agents who materialized like Dante had them on speed dial, I'm sitting on the floor of the observation room with my knees pulled to my chest. Dante finds me there, kneels in front of me, uncertain in a way I've never seen. Did I go too far? The question hangs between us, a test of where my morality ends and his begins. I don't know, I admit. Part of me is glad, part of me is terrified of what you're capable of, and the rest of me, what about the rest of you? The rest of me understands why my mother saved you. Because underneath all this power and violence, you're still that 15-year-old boy who just wanted someone to care whether he lived or died. Dante's face crumples. For just a moment, the armor falls away completely and I see the boy in the photograph. Broken, desperate, clinging to kindness like a lifeline. Then his phone rings. It's his attorney, voice tight with urgency on speaker. We have a problem. The evidence we submitted to the FBI. Someone's claiming it was obtained illegally. They're saying you fabricated everything. And Lara, the lawyer pauses. They have a warrant for your arrest. Accessory to kidnapping, conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction of justice. Someone set you up perfectly. My blood turns to ice. What? The DA is offering Dante a deal. Turn on you. Testify that you orchestrated Richard's abduction as revenge, and he walks away clean. Protect you. And he loses everything. His businesses, his freedom, everything he's built. I look at Dante. He's already standing, his face carved from stone, and I know, he's about to sacrifice himself. No, I say, standing on shaking legs. Absolutely not. Lara, you've protected me since the night we met. You've fought for me, bled for me, turned your world upside down for me. Now it's my turn. I grab my coat, ignoring Vincent's protests. Because I finally understand what my mother saw in you. You're worth saving, Dante. Even from yourself. Where are you going? I look back at him, this dangerous man who's somehow become the safest thing in my life. To fix this, without you destroying everything for me, I don't give Dante the chance to make himself a martyr. The moment his attorney ends the call, I'm already moving, pulling on my coat, grabbing my phone, ignoring Vincent's protests as I head for the door. Behind me, I hear Dante's voice, sharp with command and something that sounds almost like fear. Lara, stop. You don't understand what you're doing. I turn back, and the look on his face nearly breaks my resolve. Exhaustion and desperation warring with the iron control he's maintained since the night we met. But I've spent 10 years navigating hospital bureaucracy, learning which threads to pull to unravel institutional lies. I know how systems work, how they fail, how they can be manipulated by people who understand their weak points. I understand perfectly, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. Someone with serious power set this up. They knew exactly which charges would stick, exactly how to make me look complicit. But they made one mistake. What mistake? They assumed I'd let you sacrifice yourself without fighting back. Vincent drives me to Midtown, to the offices of Morrison and Associates, the firm representing Richard Castellano. It's nearly midnight, but lawyers like Morrison don't keep normal hours. They keep the hours of people who have things to hide. The receptionist tries to stop me, but I walk past her with the confidence I've learned from watching Dante move through the world. Like I belong, like I have every right to be there. Morrison's office is exactly what I expected. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, abstract art that probably costs more than my yearly salary. He looks up from his computer, surprise flickering across his face before he smooths it into professional neutrality. Miss Bennett, we don't have an appointment. No, we don't. I close the door behind me and sit without being invited. But we're going to have a conversation anyway, about who really hired you to represent Richard Castellano. I'm afraid that's privileged information. Is it? I pull out my phone, tap the recording app I'd hidden in my jacket during the observation of Richard's interrogation. It's inadmissible in court, probably illegal, definitely dangerous. But it proves Morrison was there, watching. coordinating. Because this recording suggests you're not just his attorney, you're part of the setup. Morrison's professional mask cracks. His hand moves toward his desk phone, then stops. He's calculating odds, weighing options, trying to determine if I'm bluffing. I'm not. Last chance, I say quietly, channeling every ounce of my mother's fierce protectiveness. Tell me who you're working for, or I send this to every journalist in New York with a note about how Russian syndicates use American lawyers to frame innocent people. Your career ends. Your firm's reputation ends. Everything ends. The silence stretches between us like a rope pulled taut. Then Morrison's shoulders slump. Detective Sarah Brennan. She approached me 6 weeks ago with an offer. Help frame you and Moretti. Get paid enough to retire early and disappear. She said she had the DA's office in her pocket, that the charges would stick because she'd been building the case for months. The name hits me like cold water. Detective Brennan, the woman who'd taken my statement about the threats, who'd promised to keep me safe, who'd had access to every detail of Dante's protection protocols. She's working for the Volkovs. She is the Volkovs' inside connection, has been for years. She feeds them information, buries investigations, makes problems disappear. Morrison's voice is hollow, defeated. This whole thing, Richard, the threats, the frame job. It's designed to isolate Moretti, force him to choose between protecting you and protecting his empire. Make him vulnerable. My phone is already in my hand, calling Dante. He answers on the first ring. Laura, where are you? Detective Brennan. She's the one who set this up. She's working for the Volkovs, has been for years. Morrison just gave me everything. Testimony, documentation, enough to blow the whole case apart. The silence on the other end is absolute. Then, get back here. Now. Vincent will meet you outside. Dante, where are you? Doing something stupid. His voice cracks slightly. I'm at the DA's office. I was about to sign a confession. My heart stops. Don't you dare sign anything until I get there. I run. Vincent is waiting at the curb, engine already running. We break every traffic law in Manhattan, getting to the DA's office in Lower Manhattan. I burst through the doors of the conference room where Dante sits across from 2 attorneys and a stenographer, unsigned papers spread across the table. And there, standing by the window with her hand resting casually on her service weapon, is Detective Sarah Brennan. She turns when I enter, and something cold slides across her face. Recognition. Calculation. Then her gun is out, not pointed at Dante, but at me. Nobody moves, she says, voice eerily calm. Or the nurse who knows too much becomes a tragic casualty of a dangerous man's world. Dante is on his feet instantly, his body angled between us. Brennan, put the gun down. This is over. Over, she laughs, and it's the cruelest sound I've ever heard. This is just beginning. You think you're so smart, Moretti? So untouchable. You've spent 15 years building your empire, blocking the Volkovs at every turn, acting like you're better than the world you came from. Sarah, one of the attorneys says nervously, what are you doing? Shut up. Her eyes never leave Dante's face. Antonio Moretti sends his regards. He's been waiting 15 years for you to care about something more than survival. Now he finally gets to take it away. The room goes absolutely still. Dante's face drains of color. My father is dead. Is he? Brennan's smile is vicious. Is that what you think? That the man who built an empire on fear and blood just quietly died of a heart attack 5 years ago? Antonio Moretti doesn't die, Dante. He adapts. He plans. He waits for the perfect moment to destroy the son who dared to leave him. You're lying. Am I? Then explain how the Volkovs knew exactly which businesses to target, how they had access to your protected routes, your safe houses, your security protocols, how they knew the one person who could make you vulnerable. She gestures at me with the gun. Was the daughter of the woman who saved you. Understanding crashes over me like a wave. This was never about territory or power. This was about a father's vengeance, about punishing Dante for choosing survival over loyalty, for becoming something other than Antonio Moretti's violent legacy. He used Richard, I whisper. Used my assault as bait because he knew you'd want to protect me, knew you'd expose yourself trying to save me. Smart girl. Brennan's finger tightens on the trigger. Unfortunately, smart girls don't live long in this world. Detective Brennan. Morrison's voice cuts through the tension, surprisingly steady. You should know that this conversation is being recorded, and that Miss Bennett has documentation of your involvement with the Volkovs. Shooting her now makes you a murderer, not a dirty cop. There's a difference. For just a moment, uncertainty flickers across Brennan's face. Her eyes dart to the door, calculating escape routes, weighing options. That's when Vincent moves. I don't see where he comes from. Maybe he'd been standing just outside the door. Maybe he'd anticipated this exact scenario. But suddenly he's there, his hand clamping around Brennan's wrist with practiced precision, the gun clattering to the floor. The next minutes are chaos. Federal agents streaming into the building, apparently summoned by Morrison the moment I'd left his office. Brennan screaming about immunity deals while being cuffed. The attorneys backing away from the table, hands raised, proclaiming their ignorance of the detective's plans. And Dante, standing perfectly still in the center of it all. His face carved from stone as his world reshapes itself around a truth he'd spent 15 years running from. His father isn't dead. Has never stopped hunting him. Has used my trauma, my mother's memory, everything I am as a weapon against the son who dared to survive. When the federal agents finally clear the room, taking Brennan away in handcuffs, I find Dante standing at the window overlooking the city. His city, the empire he'd built trying to become something different from his father's legacy. He's still out there, Dante says quietly. Somewhere in this city, pulling strings, turning my life into his chess game. And he'll keep coming until what? He turns to face me, and the vulnerability in his eyes makes my chest ache. Until I give him what he wants. Me. Destroyed. Broken. Everything I've built turned to ash. Or, I say, moving to stand beside him, until we stop playing his game. What do you mean? Your father wants you isolated. Wants you to lose everything trying to protect what matters. So we do the opposite. I take his hand, lacing our fingers together. We don't hide. We don't run. We build something he can't touch because it's not based on fear or control or violence. We build something real. Dante's laugh is hollow. You think love conquers Mafia vendettas? This isn't a fairy tale, Lara. No, it's not. It's messier and more complicated and probably going to end with both of us in therapy for years. But I watched you destroy Richard Castellano with nothing but information and phone calls. I watched you dismantle a man's entire life to protect mine. That's not the action of Antonio Moretti's son. That's the action of the boy my mother saved. The one who learned that sometimes the rules we follow aren't the same as what's right. Something cracks in his expression. Not quite hope, but close. Painful and fragile and impossibly brave. Your mother would have liked you, he whispers. She would have liked you too. The man you became, not the boy you were forced to be. His phone buzzes. He glances at it, and his entire body goes rigid. Without a word, he turns the screen toward me. It's a message from an unknown number. No text, just a photograph. My apartment building. The familiar brownstone on West 48th Street. And standing in front of it, looking directly at the camera with a smile that makes my blood run cold, is a man I've never seen before. But I know who he is. Know it with absolute certainty. Antonio Moretti. Dante's father, the architect of everything that's happened, and below the photograph, a message that makes the world tilt. She looks so much like her mother. Tell me, son, will you save this one? Or will you let her die the way Elena Bennett really died? Not from cancer. From knowing too much about the boy she saved. From becoming a liability I couldn't allow to live. The photograph doesn't just break something in Dante, it shatters him completely. I watch as every carefully constructed wall he's built over 15 years crumbles in the span of a heartbeat. His face goes white, then gray, the color draining like someone's opened a valve. The phone slips from his fingers, and I catch it before it hits the ground. Reading the message again with hands that won't stop shaking. Not from cancer. From knowing too much. My mother didn't die from the disease that hollowed her out over 18 months. She died because she'd saved a boy who became dangerous. Because she'd seen too much, known too much. Become a liability to a man who eliminated problems with the same casual precision other people use to delete emails. Lara, Dante's voice is broken, raw. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know. I should be angry. should blame him for bringing this poison into my mother's life, into mine. But when I look at his face, at the devastation and guilt written across every feature, I see the 15-year-old boy from the photograph, the one who'd been beaten and starved and taught that love was just another word for control. "I know you didn't," I whisper. "She saved me." And he killed her for it. Dante's hands are shaking now, his breath coming in sharp gasps that sound like drowning. Everything I've built, every good thing I've tried to do, it's all stained with her blood. With your mother's blood. Stop. I grab his face, forcing him to look at me. Antonio Moretti killed her. Not you. He made that choice, committed that evil. You don't get to take responsibility for your father's sins. But if you'd never what? Survived. My mother wouldn't want that. She chose to save you knowing the risks. She chose compassion over safety because that's who she was. And blaming yourself dishonors that choice. The words seem to reach him, cutting through the spiral of guilt. His breathing slows, steadies. When he speaks again, his voice has gone quiet and deadly calm. "I'm going to kill him." "No. Lara, he murdered your mother. And if you kill him, you become exactly what he wanted you to be." I step back, crossing my arms over my chest to stop the shaking. "Your father has spent 15 years trying to turn you into his reflection. Every move he's made, every piece he's positioned, it's all designed to prove that you're his son, that violence and vengeance are the only languages you speak. So what do you want me to do? Let him walk away?" "I want you to do what my mother taught you." I pull out my phone, already dialing. "I want you to survive by becoming something he can never understand." Vincent appears in the doorway, his expression grim. Behind him, 2 federal agents I recognize from earlier, the ones who'd arrested Brennan. "Miss Bennett," one of them says. "We've been monitoring communications. That message came from a burner phone, but we were able to triangulate the location. Antonio Moretti is in Manhattan. We can move on him within the hour." Dante's entire body tenses. "You've known where he is?" "We've been building a RICO case for 3 years." The agent's voice is careful, diplomatic. "But we needed evidence that would stick. Detective Brennan's testimony, combined with Morrison's cooperation, gives us everything we need. Antonio Moretti can be arrested tonight, charged with murder, conspiracy, racketeering. He'll never see daylight again." "I want to be there," Dante says flatly. "When you take him down." "Sir, I wasn't asking permission. The warehouse where they find Antonio Moretti is in Red Hook, Brooklyn, the kind of location that exists in the gaps between legitimate businesses and criminal enterprises. I insist on coming despite every logical argument against it, despite Vincent's protests and Dante's reluctance and my own terror singing in my veins. Because my mother died for this, for saving a boy who'd grown into a man who chose justice over vengeance, who built protection instead of destruction, who learned that mercy was stronger than violence, and I need to see it end." We wait in an unmarked van 2 blocks away while federal agents move into position. Through the surveillance feed, I watch as they breach the entrance. Precise, coordinated, overwhelming force that leaves no room for resistance. Antonio Moretti doesn't run, doesn't fight. He sits at a metal table in the center of the warehouse like he's been waiting for this moment. A half smile on his face that looks exactly like Dante's except emptied of warmth. "Let me talk to him," Dante says to the lead agent. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. That's against protocol. 5 minutes, or I start making calls that complicate your case. Your choice." The agent relents, though every line of his body radiates disapproval. Dante enters the warehouse alone, his movements controlled despite the rage I know he's carrying. I watch through the surveillance feed, audio crackling through the van's speakers. "Hello, son." Antonio's voice is cultured, almost gentle. "Took you long enough. You killed Elena Bennett. I eliminated a problem. There's a difference. She knew about your location, your contacts, your vulnerabilities. She'd become sentimental, started asking questions about whether you were truly safe. I couldn't allow that kind of exposure." Dante's hands curl into fists at his sides. "She was innocent. No one is innocent. You should have learned that by now." Antonio leans back, utterly relaxed despite the federal agents surrounding the building. I taught you to survive, Dante. To be ruthless. To understand that power is the only currency that matters. And yet you've spent 15 years trying to pretend you're different. Building your little empire on protection instead of fear, on mercy instead of strength. Mercy is strength. Is it? Then show me. Antonio's smile widens. Show me this mercy you've learned from dead women and frightened nurses. Let me walk out of here. Prove that you're better than the father who made you. The silence stretches between them, heavy with 15 years of pain and survival and choices that can't be unmade. I hold my breath, watching Dante's face through the grainy surveillance feed. When he speaks, his voice is steady, certain. No. I'm not better than you because I show mercy to the man who murdered the woman who saved my life. I'm better than you because I know the difference between justice and revenge, between protecting people and controlling them, between love and possession. Dante steps closer, and his father's smile finally falters. Elena Bennett taught me that survival isn't the same as living, that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let someone else carry the weight. So I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to let you walk away. I'm going to let the justice system do what it should have done 30 years ago. You think prison will hold me? I think you're an old man who's spent his entire life building empires on fear, and fear has an expiration date. Your time is over, Dad. Mine is just beginning. Dante turns and walks away, leaving his father sitting alone in that warehouse surrounded by federal agents. He doesn't look back. Doesn't give Antonio the satisfaction of one final confrontation. When he climbs into the van beside me, his hands are shaking. I take them in mine, feeling the tremors, the adrenaline, the weight of choosing the harder path. You did good, I whisper. Did I? His voice cracks. I let him live. You let him face consequences. That's harder than killing him. Braver. Vincent drives us back to Manhattan in silence. Through the windows, the city slides past. Millions of lights, millions of lives, millions of stories intersecting in ways we'll never fully understand. My mother saved a boy in an alley 20 years ago, and that choice rippled forward through time until it touched me, changed me, gave me a reason to be brave. At the penthouse, Dante disappears into his bedroom without a word. I give him space, understanding that some processing has to happen alone. Instead, I call Sophie at the private clinic. How are you feeling? Like I got shot in a Mafia war because my roommate caught the attention of New York's most dangerous bachelor. Her voice is weak but carries traces of her usual sarcasm. So, Tuesday, I'm so sorry. Lara, stop, I'm okay. Leg hurts like hell, but I'm okay. And honestly, watching Vincent coordinate that extraction while carrying me like I weighed nothing, kind of hot. Despite everything, I laugh. You're ridiculous. Yeah, well, one of us has to maintain perspective. Sophie's voice softens. Are you okay? Like, actually okay? Am I? I think about the last week, the club, the rose, the surveillance, the revelations that keep unfolding like origami in reverse. About my mother's death being murder, not tragedy. About Dante's father orchestrating everything from the shadows. About choosing to stay anyway. I'm getting there, I say finally. We talk for another 20 minutes before Sophie's pain medication kicks in and her words start slurring. I hang up and find Dante standing in the living room doorway, watching me with an expression I can't quite read. I have to go back to Brooklyn, he says quietly. There's something I need to do. What? Say goodbye. We drive to Greenwood Cemetery in silence. It's nearly dawn, that strange hour when the city holds its breath between night and morning. Dante leads me through rows of headstones until we reach a simple marker. Elena Marie Bennett, beloved mother, dedicated nurse. She lived loudly. I hadn't been back since the funeral. Couldn't bear it. But now, standing here with Dante beside me, I feel something shift. I'm sorry, Dante says to the headstone. I'm sorry my survival cost you everything. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you the way you protected me. I'm sorry it took me 15 years to understand that you didn't save me because you wanted something in return. You saved me because that's who you were. His voice breaks on the last word. I take his hand, lacing our fingers together. She forgives you, I whisper. Wherever she is, whatever happens next, she forgives you. Because she knew what she was doing when she saved you. She chose compassion, and she'd make the same choice again. We stand there as the sun rises over Brooklyn, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. And for the first time since my mother died, I feel something that might be peace. Then Dante's phone rings. He answers it, his expression shifting from grief to something harder. When? A pause. How many casualties? My stomach drops. What happened? He hangs up, his face carved from stone. There's been an attack on the federal convoy transporting my father. 3 agents dead, 2 critically injured, and Antonio Moretti, he swallows hard, gone. Vanished like he was never there. The peace shatters. Because of course it does. Because Antonio Moretti doesn't surrender, doesn't accept defeat. He adapts, evolves, comes back stronger. He's coming for us, I whisper. Yes. Dante turns to face me fully, and in his eyes I see the decision he's already made, which is why you need to leave, tonight. Vincent will take you somewhere safe, out of the country, new identity, everything you need to start over. No. Lara, this isn't a negotiation. You're right, it's not. I step closer, refusing to back down. I'm not running, I'm not hiding, and I'm not letting you face this alone. He'll kill you. He'll try. I take Dante's face in my hands, forcing him to see me. But here's what your father doesn't understand. He thinks breaking you means destroying what you love. But love doesn't make us weak. It makes us willing to fight battles we'd never fight for ourselves. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. My mother taught me that some things are worth the risk, worth the fear, worth standing up and saying no more. You're worth that risk, Dante. This, I gesture between us, is worth that risk. He pulls me close, his arms banding around me like I'm the only solid thing in a world made of quicksand, and I let him hold me, let him take comfort, let him understand that he's not alone anymore. Whatever happens next, he whispers against my hair, I need you to know something. What? I love you. I know it's too soon. No, it's complicated and dangerous and probably the worst timing in history. But I love you. And that's why I need you to... His phone buzzes. Once. Twice. A dozen times in rapid succession. He pulls back, reads the messages, and his entire body goes rigid. What is it? Without a word, he turns the screen toward me. It's a video. 10 seconds long. Grainy security footage from inside the penthouse, my bedroom, specifically. And standing at the foot of my bed, looking directly at the camera with that same cold smile, is Antonio Moretti. Text appears across the screen. I've been closer than you think. Watching. Waiting. Learning exactly where she sleeps. Where she's vulnerable. Where she dreams. You have 24 hours to give me what I want. Everything you've built. Your empire. Your power. Your future. Or I take hers. The video ends, but there's one more message. A final line that makes my blood run cold. TikTok, sun, your move, 24 hours. That's all the time Antonio Moretti gives us to choose between surrender and survival. 24 hours to decide if Dante will hand over everything he's built, every business, every connection, every carefully constructed piece of the empire he'd used to become something different from his father's legacy, or watch me die. We don't sleep. Can't. The penthouse feels contaminated now. Knowing Antonio had been inside, had stood in my bedroom while I slept unaware and vulnerable. Every shadow feels like threat. Every sound makes my heart jump. Dante spends the night making calls, his voice low and controlled as he speaks to people whose names I don't know, whose loyalty has been tested over years of careful cultivation. Vincent coordinates with federal agents who are supposed to be protecting us but somehow missed Antonio's escape. And I sit at the window watching Manhattan glitter beneath us like scattered diamonds, thinking about my mother. She'd saved a broken boy knowing it might cost her. Made that choice with open eyes because she believed some things were worth the risk, worth the fear, worth standing up and saying this matters more than safety. And now I understand. Because watching Dante dismantle himself trying to keep me alive, seeing the way he's already calculating which pieces of his soul he can trade for my survival, I know exactly what she felt. I have a plan, I say into the pre-dawn silence. Dante looks up from his phone, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. Lara, we've been over this. You're not bait. I finish for him. Yes, I am. That's exactly what I am. Your father wants you to choose between protecting me and protecting your empire. So we give him what he wants? Absolutely not. Listen to me. I move to sit across from him, taking his hands in mine. Antonio thinks he knows you. Thinks you're still that 15-year-old boy who could be controlled through fear, but he's wrong. You've spent 15 years learning that protection doesn't mean control, that love doesn't mean possession, so we use that against him. Vincent enters the room, his expression grim. Sir, we've identified Antonio's location. He's holed up in a warehouse in Long Island City. Heavily guarded, multiple exits, civilian population nearby. A direct assault would be a massacre, Dante finishes. He's counting on that, counting on me being unwilling to risk innocent lives. Then we don't assault. I stand, my mind racing with the pieces of a plan that's reckless and dangerous and probably stupid. We negotiate. He'll kill you the moment you walk in. Not if I'm wearing a wire, not if federal agents are positioned at every exit, not if he thinks he's won. The plan takes shape over the next 6 hours. Federal agents who actually answer to people Antonio can't corrupt coordinate with Vincent's team. I'm fitted with recording equipment so sophisticated it's invisible. Woven into my clothing, my jewelry, even the clip holding back my hair. Every word, every movement, every confession will be captured and transmitted in real time. You understand what you're walking into? The lead federal agent, a woman named Martinez, who looks like she's seen too much violence to be impressed by one more dangerous man, studies me with calculating intensity. Antonio Moretti is not a man who honors deals. He's going to try to kill you regardless of what Dante surrenders. I know. And you're doing this anyway. I think about my mother, about the photograph of her with a broken boy, her arm around his shoulders, fierce protectiveness in her smile, about the choice she made knowing it might cost everything. Some things are worth the risk. Martinez almost smiles. Your mother would be proud. The warehouse in Long Island City is exactly what I expected. Industrial, cold, the kind of place where screams get swallowed by machinery and concrete. Vincent drives me, his hands steady on the wheel despite the tension radiating from every muscle. Miss Bennett, he says quietly as we approach. If anything goes wrong, you run. Don't try to help. Don't try to negotiate. You run toward the south exit where Martinez's team is positioned. Understood? Understood. And Lara? His voice softens. Mr. Moretti cares for you more than he's cared for anyone since your mother. That makes you both powerful and vulnerable. Don't underestimate what he'll do to keep you alive. The warehouse entrance is guarded by 2 men who search me with professional thoroughness. They find my phone, my keys, but miss the recording equipment hidden in places they're too professional to search thoroughly. Then they escort me inside. Antonio Moretti sits at a table in the center of the vast space, backlit by afternoon sun streaming through dirty windows. He looks older than in the photographs, mid-60s, silver hair, a face that would be distinguished if not for the cold calculation in his eyes. He's wearing an expensive suit like this is a business meeting instead of an execution. Lara Bennett. His voice is cultured, warm even. You look so much like your mother. Same eyes, same stubborn set to your jaw. Elena was a remarkable woman. You murdered her. I eliminated a threat. There's a difference. He gestures to the chair across from him. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. I sit because refusing gives him power. Because my mother taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is face evil calmly. Refuse to let it see your fear. Where's Dante? Yes, my son. Antonio's smile is knife-sharp. He's coming. Should be here in... He checks his watch. 10 minutes. Just enough time for us to get to know each other. I know everything I need to know about you. Do you? Because I know quite a lot about you. Lara, pediatric nurse at Mount Sinai. Caring, compassionate, the kind of woman who puts others first even when it costs her. Just like your mother. He leans forward. Did Elena ever tell you about the last conversation we had? My throat tightens. No? She called me. 3 days before she died. Said she knew what I'd become, knew the kind of man I was. She asked me to leave Dante alone, to let him build his life without my interference. Antonio's voice drops. She begged, actually. Got down on her knees and begged me to show mercy to the boy she'd saved. And what did you say? I told her that mercy was weakness. that Dante was my blood, my legacy, and I would reclaim him when the time was right, that she could either disappear quietly or become an example. His eyes bore into mine. She chose to become an example, refused to run, refused to hide, said some things were worth dying for. The words hit me like physical blows, because that was my mother, fierce and protective and convinced that love was stronger than fear. She'd died knowing what was coming, choosing it anyway because she believed Dante deserved a chance at a different life. "You're a monster," I whisper. "I'm a realist. And you, Lara Bennett, are about to learn what your mother learned, that loving my son is a death sentence." The warehouse door opens. Dante enters flanked by Vincent, his face carved from stone, every line of his body radiating controlled violence. But it's his eyes that make my chest ache, dark with grief and rage and something that looks like goodbye. "Let her go," he says flatly. "I'll give you whatever you want, the businesses, the connections, everything. Just let her walk out of here alive." Antonio's smile widens. "Oh, Dante, you still don't understand. I don't want your empire. I want you broken, destroyed, reduced to the same helpless boy who ran from my house 15 years ago. And the best way to do that," he pulls out a gun, aims it at my head, "is to take away the one thing that makes you believe you're different from me." Time slows down. I see Dante move, see Vincent reaching for his weapon, see federal agents breaching the entrances just like we planned. But Antonio's finger is already on the trigger, his eyes bright with triumph. Then something unexpected happens. One of Antonio's own guards, a young man who'd searched me at the entrance, steps forward and knocks the gun away. The shot goes wide, sparks flying from a metal beam above my head. And suddenly the warehouse erupts into chaos. Antonio's men turning on each other, federal agents swarming in, and Dante reaching me in 3 strides. "Are you hurt?" His hands are on my face, my shoulders, checking for wounds with desperate precision. "I'm fine. I'm okay." The young guard who'd saved me is on the ground now, bleeding from a shoulder wound but alive. Martinez kneels beside him, speaking rapidly into her radio, and Antonio Moretti stands in the center of his collapsing empire, surrounded by federal agents, his face finally showing something other than cold control. Shock. Disbelief. The realization that he'd miscalculated. "You turned my own men," he says to Dante, his voice hollow. "No." Dante's arm is around me, solid and warm. "They turned themselves. Because you taught them the same lessons you taught me, that loyalty built on fear is just slavery with better pay. I offered them something different, a chance to be more than your weapons. You think this is over?" Antonio's laugh is bitter. "You think putting me in prison ends this? I have connections, resources I had." Martinez steps forward, her voice cold. "We've been dismantling your network for 3 years, Mr. Moretti. The judge you paid off, arrested this morning, the police captain who buried investigations, in custody. Every connection you had is gone. You're going to spend the rest of your life in a supermax facility where your name means nothing and your power is a memory." As federal agents lead Antonio away in handcuffs, he looks back at Dante one final time. And what I see in his face isn't rage or threat. It's something worse, disappointment. Like even now, even in defeat, he believes his son should have chosen violence over mercy, vengeance over justice. Dante watches him go with an expression I can't read. Then he turns to me, and the mask finally cracks completely. "I thought I'd lost you." "You didn't." I cup his face, feeling the tremor in his jaw. "You couldn't lose me if you tried. I'm too stubborn. My mother's daughter." He pulls me close, his arms banding around me like I'm the only thing keeping him anchored to earth. And I let him hold me. Let him take comfort. Let him understand that this complicated, dangerous, beautiful thing we've built, is real. "What happens now?" I whisper against his chest. "Now!" Dante pulls back enough to see my face. "Now we figure out how to live. Actually live. Not just survive. We go to therapy, probably. Definitely therapy. We learn how to be 2 people who choose each other without the weight of violence and vengeance hanging over us." That sounds terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. His smile is slow, genuine. "Want to do it anyway?" I think about my mother, about the choice she made to save a broken boy, knowing it would ripple forward through time in ways she couldn't predict. About the daughter she'd raised to be brave, to be compassionate, to believe that some things were worth the risk. Yes, I say, let's do it anyway. 3 months later, I'm standing in my new apartment in the West Village. Not a penthouse, not a fortress, just a sunny 2-bedroom that I pay for with my own salary, and Dante's insistence on contributing to rent because I basically live here anyway. Sophie has the 2nd bedroom, her leg fully healed, though she still walks with a slight limp that Vincent watches with worried intensity whenever he thinks no one's looking. I've gone back to Mount Sinai, back to the pediatric ward where I know who I am and what I'm supposed to do, but I'm different now. Louder, more willing to speak up when something's wrong, to advocate for my patients, to take up space. Dante has transformed his businesses, legitimized the ones that could be saved, dismantled the ones that couldn't. He works with federal prosecutors now, helping dismantle organized crime networks from the inside. It's dangerous work, the kind that means he still has bodyguards and encrypted phones and nights when he comes home looking haunted. But he comes home to me. To this life we're building that has nothing to do with empires or power or violence. I brought dinner, he announces, pushing through the door with bags from the Italian place down the street. And wine. And possibly too much tiramisu, but Sophie texted that she's staying at Vincent's tonight, so it's just us, and I thought, Dante. Yeah. Come here. He sets down the food and crosses to where I'm standing at the window, looking out at the city that almost destroyed us, but somehow made us instead. I take his hand, lacing our fingers together. I love you, I say. I know I don't say it enough. No, I'm still learning how to be in this relationship without waiting for it to explode. But I love you. And I choose this. Choose us. Every single day. His smile is slow. Transformative. I love you too. Even though you steal my coffee every morning and leave medical journals all over the apartment and have strong opinions about how I load the dishwasher. Especially because of those things. Especially because of those things. He kisses me, and it's not desperate or possessive or any of the ways he used to touch me when violence was the constant backdrop to our lives. It's just certain. A promise. A beginning. Outside my window, New York sprawls in endless possibility. A city that swallows secrets and spits out survivors. And in this moment, standing in afternoon sunlight with Dante's arms around me, and the smell of Italian food filling my small apartment, I understand what my mother tried to teach me all along. That freedom isn't the absence of danger. It's the presence of choice. That love isn't about possession or protection. It's about seeing someone completely, all their beauty and brokenness and complicated truths, and choosing them anyway. That sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is let yourself be seen, really seen, and loved exactly as you are. My phone buzzes with a text from Chelsea. Girls' night this weekend? Maya says she has news. I text back, absolutely. And I have a story to tell you, because that's what this is, in the end. A story about a girl who danced on a dare and caught the attention of a dangerous man. About a mother who saved a broken boy and changed the trajectory of 2 lives. About choosing courage over safety, love over fear, living over merely surviving. It's a story that started with a red sequin dress and a rose pulled from the earth with bare hands. And it ends, or really, begins, with a woman standing in her own apartment, building her own life, loving a man who's learning that mercy is strength and protection doesn't mean control. Dante's phone rings. He glances at it, then silences it with a smile. Work can wait, he says, pulling me closer. This matters more, and he's right. This, us, here, now, choosing each other in the quiet moments between chaos, matters more than anything else. My mother would be proud. If you made it to the end of this story, let us know in the comments which city you're watching from, and click the yellow bell to subscribe to the channel and support us. Keep the adventure going by clicking on the suggested video on your screen.